Man, who's to blame in Dallas? Joel Embiid throws some shade at Boston, and the Celtics are the 2024 NBA champions. I'm Rosa Panta. This is the Clinic All NBA podcast. I have the three hooligans with me. JJ, how you living, my friend?
Woo! Feeling good. I'm feeling great. Basketball season is over, though. What up, fellas?
Oh man, it's always sad when it's over. John, how you living, my friend?
Sad, sad day, my friends.
Because basketball's
What a
over?
day. No, well, sure, if you want to call it that. But you know why it's a sad, sad day. I'll leave it at that. But good to be here.
It's good to see you, John. Sammy, how you living, my friend?
I am divided. The Lakers may have hired a competent coach. I don't like that. Don't like Boston. Can't stand Luka. Season's over. I'm confused. I don't know what to do with myself. It was a sad season for California basketball.
It sounds like a sad season for Sammy right now. But boys, we got to talk about some NBA basketball. And our first question goes like this. Is Jaylen Brown a top 10 player going into next season? Yes or no? I have some people on the list here, like Jimmy Butler, Paul George, Devin Booker, Kawhi Leonard, Donovan Mitchell, Jason Tatum. The list goes on, right? So thinking about who the top 10 players are, is Jaylen Brown in there? I'm going to start us off with Sammy.
Ooh. You know what? This might be recency bias. I'm going to say he's on the fringe of that list now, but I'll put him in because I think we have to factor in his two-way play. And he showed throughout the playoffs that he can consistently guard the other team's best player and do it well, and he can also come up big in the biggest moments. And so maybe the counting stats aren't there the way they are with some players, but this is a guy now that's got a ton of playoff experience, a finals MVP to boot, so I'll put him in there. I think he's earned it.
Wow.
JJ, what do you think?
Okay, going down the list. Is Jaylen Brown better than Jimmy Butler? Oh man, I might have to say yes. Better than Paul George?
Yes.
No. Oh, okay. Let's do it. Jaylen Brown, Devin Booker. Is he better than Devin Booker? I'm good.
I'm gonna say no.
I'm gonna say yes.
I'm going to go with yes, too.
Jun?
I think they're ranked right at the same area, but yeah, I probably would favor Jaylen Brown here.
Okay, Jaylen Brown over Kawhi Leonard.
Healthy
What's
Kawhi?
the most important ability?
I think it's Jaylen Brown here.
It's availability, man. And I say that as a big Kawhi fan, but if you can't rely on the guy, you can't put him in top 10. Jalen's always there. He always plays.
That's the truth.
Okay. John, is Donovan Mitchell better than Jaylen Brown, or are you going to pick Jaylen Brown?
No, I think Jaylen Brown's better.
All right. I want everyone to answer this one now. Who's better, Jason Tatum or Jaylen Brown? I'm going to have to pick, I can't believe I'm saying this, but Jaylen Brown over Tatum.
I go Tatum, but barely.
Why do you think that?
I think he is also a very, very good two-way player, and on a consistency basis, I know, to my point, he wasn't great in the finals, but he tends to be a little more consistent as an overall player, rebounding, assists, those things as well, night to night. But this is like splitting hairs. 5A, 5B kind of thing, or 9A, 9B, wherever you want to put them. So you could easily sway me the other way.
I think he's top 10. I think he's top 10. I would say he's probably... If I don't have the full list in front of me. I mean, I know there's a list of these players, but then you have to factor guys that he's probably not better than. And I know LeBron is turning 40 this year, but I don't think he's better than LeBron. Steph Curry, no. Giannis, like those guys, right?
Right.
Embiid. So I think he's going to be around like the 8 or 9. So yeah, I'll put him in the top 10. But
Do you put him over
Sammy's...
Tatum or no? That's where That one's tough.
I do.
Okay.
Slightly.
What about someone like Shai?
No.
No, I think I
I don't think
put
he's
Shea
better.
above him.
I don't think he's better than Shea.
Yeah.
How about KD?
Yes.
No.
Right now, I take him over KD currently because availability plays a big factor for me. And
Okay.
KD misses 25 games every year. He has going back 5 years.
And that's the same thing for AD.
Yes.
John, what do you think?
Maybe this is my bias as a Clipper fan, and I don't mean to take over the topic, but we've missed I've watched guys miss so many games the last 5 years that availability is like the most important thing to me now. So you guys can speak to me if I'm going overboard on that. Would like anybody take Davis over him?
I mean, AD did play almost 82 games this year. So,
Fair?
are we
That's a fair
talking
point.
about overtime?
I'm
Or are we
looking
talking
at like
about?
long sample.
I mean, by that, I mean that's fair. By your criteria, then
No, but
you would
I'm not
pick
saying I'm
Jaylen
right.
Brown
That's
over-
just me because of my own Clipper bias and the fact that they can never all play at the same time. That's just
No,
how
that's
I'm
fair.
thinking this.
That's fair. I know JJ's smiling because he's thinking something cynical and sinister right now. Say it. Why don't you just say it? Why you gotta smile and just not say anything? It's crazy. Say
No,
what
just-
you're thinking.
I'm just looking at you guys arguing. That's all.
You-
You
no.
are very sensitive
You-
right now.
no, you
need
think-
to relax.
No.
I know the
This guy over
Celtics
here-
won,
this
but
guy-
relax.
This guy over here does. I mean, I agree. Honestly, Sammy, I'm not hating on availability. I think it's if that's part of your criteria for how you rank a player, that's fair. I mean, I think everyone has their different set of requirements or criteria or things that how they rank players, and that's fair. I mean, so by that standard, Jaylen Brown is better than most of these guys on the list, right? Because Kawhi's not available. Well, not on this list, but like AD over Kawhi. Who else? Who else did we mention that's injured often?
Jimmy Butler's injured often.
Jimmy Butler.
Paul George is injured often.
Yeah.
Kevin
But-
Durant's injured often. That's,
So,
that's
Sammy,
turned into a
he-
thing in the NBA.
He's in your top 10. Where roughly would you say he's in that 10?
Close to the edge
Middle
of
the
it.
pack?
8, 9, 10 for me.
Okay.
He's somewhere in that area. He's not higher than that. Don't
I
get
think
me
I would
wrong.
agree. Yeah.
Yeah?
Yeah, I agree with that.
Where do you have him, JJ? Do you have him top 10?
He's on the cusp of the top 10. The thing that, and I know this is an unfair way for me to judge, but I do agree with you, Sammy, where availability is the best ability. You're talking to a Niner fan who had Jimmy G on his roster for all those years, so of course I believe in that. What I also believe is if you replace, for example, AD and put Jaylen Brown on the Lakers team, would they win as much? And I know there are like variables that play into it, like chemistry, lineup, position. But it's hard for me to have Jaylen Brown. Jaylen Brown is not a superstar yet, but he's almost there. He's not an MVP caliber. That's what I'll say.
That I would agree with. I don't think he's an MVP caliber player either. But I think the MVP caliber player in the league right now is limited to 4 or 5 guys.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because, like, I don't think the Jaylen Brown noise was this loud before the playoffs. I mean, before the finals, really. And it got so loud because he did so well against the Mavericks. And I don't know if I could rely on a Jaylen Brown to, like, carry a team. But I would say that, like, if you switch Jaylen Brown and, let's say, Paul George, you might get a similar result, thinking that they are like the same position, but they do different things. Jaylen Brown is just in the right situation.
Agreed.
So it makes him appear as if he is a top 10 guy. Much like, I don't know, maybe like Andrew Wiggins in 2022. You know, you're just hoping that Jaylen Brown doesn't drop off the face of the planet like Andrew Wiggins has the last couple of years. But let me move on to the next question here. We're going to play the blame game. Who should the Mavs blame for their loss? Luka's defense, Kyrie's lack of offense, supporting cast, or Jason Kidd's coaching? John, what do you think?
What I think is I'm really glad that JJ did not apologize to Kyrie when I asked him to repeatedly over the last few episodes, because in case you didn't know where I was going with this, absolutely because of Kyrie Irving. His lack of offense. I mean, Dallas is already top heavy. They rely on their Luka and Kyrie to put up points and cover for the lack of offense that they have for their role players, right? Boston is just much deeper. They have more guys who can score at 3 different levels. And in order for them, for Dallas to even have a chance to neutralize that, they needed at least 30 a game from Kyrie and Luka. Luka did his part for most of the games. I know Game 5 was not great. He scored a bunch in garbage time, but Kyrie was awful this entire series. And I don't know whether it was Lucky the Leprechaun curse, whether just Boston in his head. I don't know what it was. Maybe not enough incense in the locker room. I don't know, but like, he just played horrible. I know he's 34 years old. Maybe he got tired at the end of this, the final series, the last couple games. But I honestly think it's just Boston's defense, and I'll give them credit. I mean, I think their length, their size, their speed gave Kyrie problems. And obviously his age doesn't help. But I think, and you guys tell me if I'm off base here, but I feel like Kyrie really did this to himself over the last year, 2, 3, 4 years. It felt like he didn't take basketball seriously. And I think it showed, it was evident, right? He was taking time off. He got into like off the court issues, and maybe that's part of it. Like his head wasn't in the game. And this season, granted, he did have more of a focus, but I think over the last few years, he really didn't take advantage of his prime. And that's a shame, because Kyrie is such a crazy talented basketball player. And I feel like the Mavs could have given the Celtics a much better fight if Kyrie was on his game. And offensively, he just wasn't there. He wasn't consistent. He was missing chippies. So I don't know, man. JJ, you're the one who didn't apologize to Kyrie. Rightfully so. So what do you think about this?
I agree with you. I think if Kyrie's going to be considered a star, and he received all the praise before heading to the finals, then you got to obviously take the criticism as well. But I'm just going to go ahead and say this on this pod, John. My blame game, or for the blame game, who I blame the most, it's going to be Luka's defense. And if we're going to have the same principle with Kyrie, you're going to take all the credit when you're doing well. It's Luka's team, man. And when you have a montage of lowlights being reposted by different content creators over and over again, that's a bad look. If you are being targeted every single game and you are the superstar, that is a bad look. And by watching Luka play, it just makes you appreciate the legends that we grew up with, that when it came in the postseason, they played on both ends of the floor. You got your Kobe's, you got your LeBrons, your Jordan games, and those dudes played two-way games, and Luka was nowhere to be found. And we've all played ball before. We all know that one person that's weak on defense affects the whole defense, because you gotta help the helper, and it just breaks down the defense. So I know Luka did his thing on offense, but what's the point if you're just letting your player go by you?
You mean raising your arms in shock at the referee every time something happens isn't defense? Come on, that's just his defensive game. I mean, it's kind of a cop-out, but I agree with both of you here. I mean, clearly we knew Boston was deeper. We knew that the whole time. So Kyrie and Luka needed to put in 60 a game between the two of them, minimum. And Luka hit 30, I think, in 3 of the games. Although I do want to acknowledge, he got shut down in the second half almost every game, because the second half of every game, Holiday and Brown were the two that primarily took him, which they weren't doing early in the bulk of those games. So that was a good adjustment by Boston each game. Kyrie was, I think, solid in game 3, if I remember right, if that. And the rest of the games, he scored, I think, 18 or less every game. He got completely shut down. And if you are that top heavy, as good as PJ Washington and Lively and those other guys were, those guys aren't your scorers. And you can't rely on your supporting cast as much. You need them to come up in spots, but unless they go out of this world with the way Kyrie was playing, they're not going to win that game. Luka needs to get in better shape this offseason, and he needs to start playing defense. You are absolutely right on that. It can be infuriating to watch him also. He's got to settle down on the refs. I don't know if anybody saw this. I think it was after game 3 when he fouled out that Windhorst just kind of eviscerated him on ESPN.
Oh, yeah, laid into him.
Yeah, and the thing is, we say that, like, everyone was shocked. But it wasn't like he was attacking him personally. He was just spitting out facts. Like, of the calls that he was complaining about and the fact that they were, like I think JJ said, they were hunting him and pick and roll the entire series. And it forces the rest of the team to adjust, and they get sick of it. So I'll go with both. If I have to pick one for this particular series, I'm going to go with Kyrie's lack of offense, just because the Mavs are so top heavy that they couldn't make up for it.
Yeah, I completely agree with you guys. I'm going to move us on to our next topic here. In last week's podcast, we played the blame game for the viewership of the finals dropping. One of those reasons mentioned was a lack of superstars. There are no existing NBA most valuable players in the 2024 NBA finals. This is something that hasn't occurred in over the last 30 years and only twice since the 1950s. Is this more proof that Luka should have won the MVP within the last 3 years? So I'm going to go through some of this list here. In 2019, there was Steph Curry, Kevin Durant. In 2020, LeBron James. 21, Giannis Antetokounmpo. 22, Stephen Curry. 23, Nikola Jokic. And 24, none of them. So do you guys think, like, based off of this, that maybe Luka should have had the MVP within the last 3 years?
So, John, Luka had the most points in the series, rebounds, assists. The list goes on. In fact, StatMuse posted it this morning. He had every single category as number 1. So this poses the question, should he have won the MVP? I think, and this is kind of, I'm going to come as a hater here, John, but I think it just shows that this year's finals, it was that terrible where no one that was an MVP caliber player represented was in the finals. I don't think Luka was really good, but I think it just showed that, people were complaining about viewership. I think it's correlated, man. And Luka, he's really good, but he's not MVP caliber. He's not superstar status.
I mean, yeah, I agree with that. Looking at this list, though, I just see LeBron James, Steph Curry, like 16 times. I can't even count how many times I see Steph Curry or LeBron James' name. So I feel like, man, I mean, let's be fair. That is pretty high standards to try and meet, right? Like, as good as Luka is and some of these other guys, but I think we've gotten so spoiled when it comes, and I think the viewers in general have been spoiled with what we've seen in the finals, right? When you have LeBron James, arguably the greatest player of all time, right? Probably top 3 in most people's minds at the very least. And you have Steph Curry, the greatest shooter this game has ever seen. Guys like Kevin Durant, who are just a freak. Giannis, another freak. The actual freak. It's just like, man, I'm not surprised about the viewership. I mean, we talked about it earlier, right? We said that, hey, the viewership is really down. I thought it was the market. I said it was the market. I thought it was the team, the Dallas and Boston. Even though Boston is a big market, I just don't. There's no rivalry. There's no history. There's not a lot of context there. But to your point, yeah, it doesn't have a lot of it doesn't have an MVP player. For the first time it hasn't occurred in 30 years. That's pretty wild, man.
Yeah.
So I just don't know if it's proof that Luka should have won the MVP. I just, you know what I mean? Like, The MVP to me is always an award. It's about the regular season. It doesn't account for the playoffs. I think the narrative really matters. It doesn't. It takes into a lot of things that are biased, the voters and people who kind of look at the awards. So I don't know if it's proof one way or the other about Luka, but I just in general, man, like it was missing that, I guess, that star power, and it didn't help that the stars really didn't, like Jason Tatum wasn't balling out. Luka played well, but he really, like, the complaining and the lack of defense really hurt just the viewership. And Kyrie stunk it up, right? And like Jaylen Brown he's not a household name, and he played the best out of all four guys probably consistently. Drew Holiday arguably could have been the MVP and the Boston Celtics most valuable player on both ends of the floor if we're being serious. So.
Yeah, John, I completely agree with you. Another thing that I'll point out, I sort of think these two things aren't directly related as far as like Luka winning Finals MVP and the viewership dropping. I'm looking at like, you know, the superstars on this list, like you were saying, like Steph Curry, LeBron James, Giannis Antetokounmpo. Even in 23, when it was Nikola Jokic, even though Nikola Jokic isn't like the most fun person to watch play basketball, except for basketball nerds who really like watching that kind of stuff, he was playing against an 8th seed Jimmy Butler, who no one thought would be there, with a ragtag cast, and it was just like good drama to watch. And we had zero drama for this finals. These were blowout games, every single game pretty much. And maybe if the Mavs made it interesting, like 1-2 games after they lost 3 in a row, or one even like brought it to a game 7, then it would be like, oh man, the viewership would pick up. But I think after the first like 3 games, everyone knew that, you know, it was just a matter of time before, you know, the Celtics won a championship, unfortunately, you know, unfortunately for John.
Unfortunately indeed.
I would take us to the next topic here. Cap or fact? It's been 24 years since a player won both the scoring title and the championship in the same season. The last time was in the 1999 and 2000 season when Shaq averaged just under 30 points, won the scoring title, and went on to win the NBA title as well. Since 2000, only 3 scoring champions reached the finals: Allen Iverson in 2001, Kevin Durant in 2012, and Stephen Curry in 2016. Cap or fact? The scoring title is overrated.
Wow.
JJ, what do you think?
Oh man. I think the scoring title is cool, but yes, I do think it's overrated just based off this. In fact, one of Jordan's highlights in his career is that when he stopped winning the scoring titles is when he started winning championships. And I don't know if it's correlated to his energy being allocated more on defense, so he concentrated more on defense and with less scoring. Steph Curry, that was, I mean, I don't want to make excuses, but he didn't win it. Durant lost to LeBron at 2012. If the last scoring champion was won 24 years ago with Shaq, I guess you got to go with the stats here, and it's overrated. What do you think, John? Is it overrated, the scoring title?
I think it's definitely overrated if we're talking about more recently, yeah. So I'm gonna say fact. Especially now, like the defense isn't played the same way that it was played in that early 2000s, or even before that, like the 90s. I mean, you could check, you know what I mean? You could like hand check, you can put a body on people without actually getting called for ticky-tack fouls, less complaining. It's a lot more physical. And so I think when you're winning scoring titles, you have to go through a lot greater defenses, not just individually, but as a team. Now, your people are shooting so many free throws. I mean, James Harden started to get so many free throws, right? Like Trae Young, all these guys are getting so many free throws. And so it's a lot easier to score points. You're getting free points, going to the line, 10 or 12 of your points. And all these teams are scoring at clips at the highest rate the league has ever seen, right? Like the pace has gone faster, and credit that to the Warriors probably, and Steph Curry changed the game, revolutionized how people are scoring. These guys are scoring, just like just launching threes from near half court. So I think it's definitely a little bit overrated at this point. So I'm gonna say fact.
I'm just gonna make a quick comment that Steph Curry in 2016 thing hurts.
Oh yeah.
That one hurts because you ask a lot of
Yeah.
Warriors fans, they feel like they should have had that one. Anyway, cap or fact? The previous team with the best regular season record to win the championship was the 2016-2017 Warriors. However, the Bucks had 3 regular seasons with the best regular season records and didn't even make the finals in any of those years. Celtics had the best record this season. Fact or cap? Regular season records are overrated. John.
Ooh.
I'm gonna say cap. I think regular season records are, to me, are an indication that you are the best team in the league, and unless something happens out of your control, you're more likely and should win the title, right? And when I say out of your control, I'm talking about injuries. I'm talking about, you know, the other team maybe getting crazy on a streak hot. Like you play a team that, I don't know, some scrub goes off for 3 games and you end up losing because of it. But to me, I feel like it proves throughout the course of a season, you're able to kind of withstand. It shows. I mean, like I get it. You kind of look at it when you compartmentalize it, and you look at each individual game. You're like, oh, it's just a game in an 82 game season, right? Including the playoffs. But if you look at it as a whole, over time, to me, it indicates whether if you're the best record in the league, it indicates to me that you are not just the most talented team, but you're doing all of the things right. You've built good habits. You've built a winning culture, right? Like to me, the wins, obviously, if you make the playoffs and you win the title, the record doesn't matter. But I feel like you have a much better chance when you have the best record. So I'm going to say this is cap, that regular seasons are not overrated. Regular season records are not overrated.
JJ?
I actually gonna have to agree with John. Cap. Regular season records are properly rated. For the most part, my only contingency is that there are teams where they have championship DNA. They may not have a higher seed as they should, and they could always turn it up. But the NBA is weird, and that extra home game for any series can make the biggest difference. So you play to get that home court advantage. And in order to get that, you need that regular season record. So cap, regular season records are overrated.
I'm sure if you ask any like Miami Heat fan, they would say that this is cap.
Yeah.
Because they seem to always limp into the play-in or as an 8th seed. But to me, I'm with you guys. And I know a lot of people are giving Celtics slack that they had the easiest path to the finals, but they also earned the easiest path by getting the best record, right? That is something that you earn, is the easiest path by having such a great record. We won't talk about the injuries along the way that happened for them, but that's what happened. Cap or fact? Drew Holiday is one of the stars of the final series. If the Bucks had Drew Holiday instead of Dame this year, they would have won this year's chip. John, what do you think?
Cap, because as much as I love Drew, as much as I think he is a winning player, he's not. I wouldn't. He had the right fit. He's on a team where he doesn't have to be a focal point offensively, and he can focus on all of the things that he excels at, which is defense. He rebounds well for a guard. He can penetrate and dish. He can actually hit the 3. But he doesn't have to be the focal point of the offense. And on the Celtic team, not even close.
And the reason I'm dunker spot, which was crazy.
Like he does everything well. But this is cap because Giannis got hurt. and Giannis didn't play for a few games, right? And that's
Yeah.
probably why they lost to the Pacers. So if Drew was on the team instead of Dame, but Giannis was still hurt, it wouldn't have mattered. Like, I love Drew, but no, he's not making up for Giannis being out, and the Bucks would still have lost. So, Cap.
Jay?
For entertainment purposes, I'm gonna say fact. If Drew Holiday didn't get traded, they would have probably won the East, get the first seed. Giannis would have rested like what he had done at 2021. And don't get it twisted, 2020 Lakers, 2022 Warriors, the 2023 Nuggets, and this year's Celtics, the common denominator between all these teams is that they had chemistry, and they built off that chemistry. And the one critique of this year's Bucks, gentlemen, is that the chemistry was crazy. It was kind of weird on the court. There was breakdown on defenses, on the point of attack, and who's responsible for that? It was Dame. And this year, we all predicted, or everyone thought that the Bucks would make it to the Eastern Conference Championship. But to your point, John, Giannis did get injured. But I can't just help thinking that if they did win out with the best record, they would have rested, and Giannis wouldn't have gotten hurt. So
That's a fair point.
yeah,
I'll also say this: Dame got hurt, Middleton got hurt. I mean, they just had crazy injury unluckiness, this year. And I'm gonna agree with you guys. I'm gonna toss kind of a wild question here. Another kind of capper fact: if the Drew Holiday trade never happened, and it was Marcus Smart and Porzingis, okay, newly
Boston
acquired
win?
Porzingis, does Boston still win a title? JJ.
so Marcus Smart and Porzingis on the Celtics.
Yes.
No, they did not win.
Who do you think they lose to? They lose to the Mavs? They still get there?
No,
Dang,
I don't think
there's-
they make.
Go ahead,
Or
I
John.
don't
Drew
think
Holiday,
they-
dude.
I
Drew
don't
Holiday's
think they-
just
I
hanging
don't
out
think
in
they make
Portland
that.
with Shaden Sharp and a bunch of nobodies.
I don't know, man. Like, that's tough. Man, like, this sounds crazy, but the Pacers gave them fits.
Yes.
Yeah.
So, I don't know if without Drew Holiday, they may have not. I don't know, man. They may have lost to the Pacers.
Do you think viewership would be worse if it was Pacers?
Pacers and
Mavs?
Pacers Mavs. I think it would have.
Don't answer the question. Don't
hit
answer.
all time. I think it would have. Yes, I don't know. I plead the fifth.
Capper fact. Joel Embiid doesn't think the Celtics will be a dynasty. He says, quote, "You also got to understand the whole East was kind of hurt this year, myself included. So Capper fact, the Celtics will win at least 2 more with Tatum and Brown as its core." Jay.
I'm gonna say, Cap, they will not win 2 more. Windows are small. We all know that. Look at the Nuggets. Everyone thought they were gonna win this year. They didn't. People thought the Warriors were gonna win. After they won the championship on 2022, they didn't. Same with the Bucks. Same with the Lakers. Things happen, man, and these windows, they close quickly. So I'm gonna say Cap.
And I agree with that 100% Cap. Not just because I'm a Celtic hater, but the reality is like, I don't think people understand how difficult it is to repeat and win multiple championships. I mean, think about this, right? We're talking about like some of the greatest players of all time. Jordan is the only one that has three-peated twice. And obviously he's considered one of the greatest players of all time. LeBron James has only repeated twice with the Miami Heat. That was the only time he repeated. One of the greatest players of all time. Kobe Bryant has only repeated. He did a three-peat with Shaq, and then he won back-to-back with Pau Gasol. But what else are we? The list is Dwayne Wade was on there because he was on the team with LeBron James and Chris Bosh. But Like, look at the list of players, and we can go down the line. We can talk about Larry Bird or the greatest players of all time. It does not happen often. I don't know. I don't think Tim Duncan and the Spurs, did they ever repeat? I think
Never.
they did every alternate year, right?
Yeah, they never
Or around
repeated.
there? Yeah, and so it's just like Drew Holiday's 34. He's getting up there in age. The Celtics
Right.
payroll is outrageously. I think with the CBA and the cap and all of these new rules, it's also a lot harder and harder to win multiple championships than it was in the past. So I'm gonna say cap.
A 2 is a lot. 2 more is a lot. I think maybe 1 more they can possibly do, just because they do have their core for a long time. I think Drew Holiday has like 3 years plus another year with a player option, and then Kristaps Porzingis. I think they have to decide what they're gonna do for next year, or maybe it's 2 years. So I feel like it's possible with that core. It's just that they're gonna need a lot of luck, because that's really what it comes down to. Like you said, it's hard to get multiple chips, but they at least have the young core to do it, of Jason Tatum and Jaylen Brown. So I guess we'll just have to see. Next question is, what's the most interesting stat from this year's postseason? A, elimination game Clay going 0 for 10.
Who put this in here? Who put that in this outline?
Kyrie's 1 for 13 record against his former team, the Celtics. The Nuggets' 45-point loss, or 0 finals nail-biter games. John, what do you think?
Interesting is that the right word to use? And is that the right adjective to use? What do we? Okay.
Well.
Interesting stat. Honestly, to me, and when I say interesting, I guess I'm gonna say shocking to me is like the 0 finals nail biter games. I thought for sure that we were gonna have a good series. Like I wasn't surprised that the Celtics won, but I was surprised that every single game was either a blowout or just uneventful and
Right.
really just kind of like boring, man. We didn't really get any excitement out of this series, and it's a shame, right? The finals is supposed to be, they hyped it up as much as you can. I mean, for crying out loud, how many L's can you take? No nail biter games. They played Black Eyed Peas. I got a feeling from like 2000 and like 19, like 2003. Like what else you got going on here, man? This is just horrible all around. So yeah, I'm gonna go with 0 finals at nail biter games.
Jay, what do you think?
I'm between A and B. I mean, elimination game Clay going 0 for 10 on a team that you basically grew up on the Warriors. This was a game that you were supposed to win against the Kings, who were really injured. And this is totally going to affect this offseason. So maybe I'll save A for a pod after free agency, June and John. So B, I think I'm going to go B, which is Kyrie's total record after leaving the Celtics is 1-13, 1-4 this season, or 1-6, sorry, including regular season against the Celtics. And from Kyrie being labeled as the stone cold killer on the court, he's magnificent, this magician. You gotta expect more from him, because everyone was claiming that for this series he was going to show up like what he did against the Warriors in 2016, and we didn't get a fraction of that. So that's gonna be me. And winning is everything, and they didn't win, unfortunately.
Yeah, Jay, I'm gonna go with you as well with the Kyrie 1 for 13 record, just because that's kind of a ridiculous stat. Like, to lose 13 and only win 1 against a team that
Your former team.
you stomped on Lucky, right? You stomped on that logo. Like, you would think there would be a little bit more fire to at least come out 50-50 with these games, but 1-13, that is just an absolute like butt kicking. Rank the following champions in order. So we're going to go from 2020 to 2024. So the 2020 Lakers, the 21 Bucks, the 22 Warriors, the 23 Nuggets, and the 24 Celtics. John, how would you rank these? So 2020 Lakers is 1.
No. Honestly, okay.
Who's your favorite champion?
Well, the obvious answer is my Lakers, but I think given the circumstances of like the year, the surprise, this may surprise both of you, but I'm gonna go with the Warriors. I don't think I think just the narrative and the perception of that team, kind of like that they were on the decline, that they weren't going to be able to win another championship, and then coming back against the Celtics. I think they were down 0-1, right? Or was it 0-2? It wasn't 0-2. It was 0-1. Were they ever down 0-2 in that series in the finals against the Celtics?
2-1.
Yeah,
2-1. They were 1-2.
2-1.
But just like winning Game 6 on the road with the way that they did I think they went on like a 21-0.
Yeah.
Yeah. And like on a run like that, and just it was so cool. I remember I was actually on my honeymoon in Greece, but I was kept up when I got there. I arrived. I kind of remember looking at the highlights, and I was like, "Dang, this is crazy." So I'm gonna say the most impressive to me is the 2022 Warriors. But honestly, the way that I would rank these is probably the 2022 Warriors, the 2020-21 Bucks, because I think coming back against the Suns after being down 0-2 is super cool, and rolling off 4 straight. And then I'm gonna go my Lakers, the Nuggets, and then the Celtics last for obvious reasons.
JJ, what do you think?
I'm gonna agree with John for obviously the first two. So I'm gonna go with Warriors, Nuggets. Nuggets number 2, just because, or not Nuggets. Sorry, Bucks number 2, just because in that series 2, remember that we all thought Giannis wasn't going to play. We thought he actually jacked his knee, and that dude came back with vengeance and showed no signs of being slow or being injured. For number 3, contrary to belief, we did watch the bubble. That was when we started the pod, and we saw a lot of coming out parties like Jamal Murray. We saw these crazy games, and it was just like a time that we needed basketball. So I would have to put Lakers number 3, Nuggets 4, and 5 is Celtics, just because their path, like, to be honest, like if I were to watch a documentary 10 years from now about the 2024 Celtics, it wouldn't really interest me. And that's I'm being real, because like, face it, each and every single, they just blew out their competition, and that's not their fault. Like, you could say the same about I bet you that's what people say about the 2017 Warriors.
Yeah.
They were that damn good.
We're running out of time, but I just wanted to say that the 22 Warriors was the first time someone said the words, what they gonna say now?
Jason Tatum, we're talking to you.
Yeah.
I have to get your guys' comments on this tweet here before we go. Anthony Irwin, Lakers insider, he tweeted, "Hearing it's done. JJ Redick is the next coach of the Lakers." About to go live to talk about it. John, did you catch this live stream about
I did
Anthony
not.
Irwin?
No,
Okay.
I did not. I only respond to official news, not fake news. All right. No, honestly, where there's smoke, there's fire. I'm not surprised. I wouldn't be surprised if it's announced by the end of this week. And I think we all expected that, right? Like, are we surprised that JJ Redick is the coach of the Lakers? I mean, honestly, I think he was always their first choice, and I think the delay and the Dan Hurley stuff might have just been for optics, so people can say, oh, Rob Pelinka and Lakers did their due diligence. And honestly, it's not a bad PR move if that's really what it was. So
All I'll say, as I've been saying, is that for any of these head coaches without coaching experience, please hire competent assistant coaches that used to be head coaches.
yes,
Look at like Steve, like I'm going with an example that I know, like Steve Kerr had
Mike Brown.
2016. I'm drawing a blank, but all these coaches, right, that have won championships started with assistant coaches or have had former head coaches. Ty Lue, for example, if we're going to go with another formidable coach. So JJ Redick, don't get any scrub. Get some successful former head coaches, and that's what I'll say.
JJ is talking about Mark Jackson.
Yes, please.
how dare you?
Well, with that, guys, that is all we have for tonight's pod. I want to thank you two for being on. JJ, thanks for being on, man.
Woo! I appreciate you all.
John, thanks for being on, man.
I am still sad, but it's always good to see you guys talking basketball. Let's go.
I'm Detective John.
And of course, shout out to Sammy, who had to leave the pod early.
Sammy takes it all the way.
Shout out to our video producer, RJ. Check out our YouTube channel. Remember to rate, subscribe, and review. Like us on our Facebook group page, The Clinic All NBA Podcast, and follow us on Twitter at Clinic All NBA. I'm Rosa Panta. This is The Clinic All NBA Podcast. Come find us wherever you get your podcasts.
That's ignorant.